All right. It is noon, and I do see some people still signing on, but I just like to verify that you can still see my screen. Okay, thank you. Well, let's get started. There's a lot to cover today, so welcome everyone. This is the Hawaii Aquaculture Tech and Research Brown Bag, sponsored by NELHA and the Hawaii Aquaculture Collaborative, which is facilitated by UH Sea Grant College Program. I'm Jean Schneider, representing the UH Sea Grant team, and Keith Olson is our co-host at NELHA. Our usual housekeeping: the recording of today's session and slides will be posted on our website, hiaquacollab.org. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and use the hand-raising feature, or just jump in to ask questions and make comments during our discussion. Here's a sneak peek at our upcoming sessions, subject to change. Next month, we hope to have a LIMU topic. In April, we're engaging with our local partners, and in May, we'd like to ask today's speaker back to do a legislative wrap-up and help us understand what policy progress was made in aquaculture. And if you have a topic to discuss, please contact Kai. We'd just like to take a moment to thank our contributors at Ag Day at the Capitol: Blue Ocean Mariculture, Cyanotech, Ecoponics, HAAA, Kauai Sea Farms, Kualoa Ranch, Kula Haven Farms, Local EA, and PACRAC for engaging with policymakers and stakeholders last week to promote aquaculture and ag at the Capitol. So mahalo for sharing your knowledge and passion. And now let's get to our main event. We'd like to welcome Ron Wiedenbach. Many of you know Ron, who has been an important contributor to aquaculture in Hawaii since the 70s. Ron is the co-owner and manager of Hawaii Fish Company, Hawaii's longest operating commercial fish farm. Ron is also the president of the Hawaii Aquaculture and Aquaponics Association. Ron is a fisheries biologist and a former researcher with the University of Miami, the University of Michigan, and the East-West Center. He has been an aquaculture consultant for the World Bank, foreign governments, and private companies. Ron brings a wealth of knowledge to our community with over 45 years of aquaculture experience. So welcome, Ron.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you, everyone, for joining this today. My farm is next to an airfield, so you may occasionally hear a plane go over. My apologies. Yeah, today we'll, try to walk you through the legislative process and how industry can participate, needs to participate if we're going to be successful. The bills that we put together for this year with the collaborative, and how and why businesses should, submit testimony as we go through this process. So usually we go through a process within the Aquaculture Association of trying to identify industry needs that potentially could be put into legislation. This year, with the Aquaculture Collaborative and the steering committee, we had a very good process, productive process that resulted in 9 priorities. That write-up was really well received by the chairs of the House and Senate Ag committees. They typically ask for 1 priority from each industry group, but the Senate Ag Committee asked for all 9 of our priorities, and the House group asked for the top 3. And from that, we came up with 6 bills for this session. And so that was a direct result of the careful work that went into describing our priorities, prioritizing our priorities. And I got individual emails from legislators thanking me, saying that they supported everything on the list, but because they have so many different constituents, they have to support, we have to pick a top few. But it's a process they really appreciated. So just to give you a little bit of background on HAAA, but not to spend much time today on it. The association was formed back in 1970 by Takuji Fujimura out at a Nui Fisheries Research Center when the prawn farming industry just started. And it evolved over time. In the 90s, it changed from the Prawn Farmers Association to the Aquaculture Association. And subsequently, as aquaponics came about in the state, we modified it to include aquaponics. It's always been a all-volunteer association combining producers, researchers, and state people to the level that they felt their job descriptions allowed them to participate, some formally, some informally. And during the heyday of research, when there was lots and lots of research going on at OI, at UH, statewide, and so forth, the focus of our association was annual meetings to disseminate research. But as those monies have lessened for a while, we found that we didn't have enough research to present, except maybe once every 2, possibly 3, sometimes 3 years. So the meetings decreased. I'm hoping now that as research is ramping back up, we can get back to annual meetings, at least biannual. And we can also do other things in such meetings. But as the meetings wound down, it also coincided with outside groups coming in, really trying to attack the aquaculture industry. And so in addition to trying to promote needs, we went on the defensive a lot for the industry. And that continues to this day. This particular session, not that I'm aware of, no outside efforts have come in, but there are bills that are challenging to the industry, which we will go through. But over the years, we have always tried to provide very balanced testimony. And so we've established a reputation as being a reliable source of information to the legislature. They reach out to us for input. That extends now to the National Aquaculture Association. They routinely reach out to us for input and support. And periodically, the congressional delegation reaches out to us. So but we, again, are an all-volunteer association. We've had a lot of retirements. We need to take advantage of this resurgence of the industry to get more people involved going forward. So let's, I'll focus in at this point. Was there a question? No. Otherwise, I will focus in at this point on this year's legislation. Again, we submitted, the priorities, and the legislature, really looks to see what the community wants, because it's all about getting reelected, ultimately. And so we need a presence. In the early years, I did it solo. I mean, not I, but the association did it solo. But we realized that both by workload and by number of members impacted by legislation, that we needed to be part of a larger group. So we collaborated closely with the Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau ultimately realized that they also were too small to get the attention at the legislature. So we formed a local food coalition of the Aquaculture Association, Cattlemen Council, Farm Bureau, and Ulupono, with Ulupono providing funding for legal support. Over time, that's expanded to include the Farmers Union, the Hawaii Food Industry Association, the Food Manufacturers Association, the Land Use Research Foundation, the Maui School to Farm, and CTAR. So now collectively, collectively, we have more clout. But even still, compared to tourism or other larger groups, we aren't a dominating force, but we're large enough to be heard. So we just need to work together. And again, because we now represent multiple groups, working together, we each pick one or two priorities, and then we support the others' priorities from the other groups, which are most often overlapping. So after I got the priority list from the collaborative, I reached out to the chairs of the subject matter committees, the House and Senate Ag, provided this priority document, and then ultimately they picked the ones that they felt met their goals or personal interests and the mood of the legislature, and send those off to drafting committees to take what we put down in our priority list and convert that into legislative language, finding where in the law, statutes might need to be modified and so forth. Typically, this process, and ideally this process should begin in the summertime, so that we provide them this priority list by September, October at the latest. That way there's time to meet with the chairs and discuss the bills at more length and get more enthusiasm and support lined up. They can reach out to their colleagues and so forth. This year, we didn't have that opportunity. They got the priority list about 2 weeks before the ledge started, but it was based on past relationships that, they were able to do it on a short timeline. So our first priority was the diagnostic lab, the joint effort between CTAR and Department of Ag. So we got both a House and a Senate bill put forward. That's usually the better option, so that if it doesn't reach immediate favor in one chamber, it still has a chance to go forward in the other. And then in the legislative process, each bill first goes to a subject matter committee. In our case, it's either Ag or Land and Water or Economic Development. And then it will go to one or two other committees. Most often the money committees, Finance and Ways and Means, at the end of the process. If the people in the legislature that decide on how to refer these bills, to the committees, if they like the bill, they typically refer it to 2 committees. If they don't really like the bill, they will refer it to 3 committees to make it more challenging to get it through in the timeline they allow. The legislature can turn around and overcome that by 2 committees meeting on the same day on the same bill. And, so it's always a back and forth battle by entities down there that it's hard to sometimes figure out. But anyway, these 2 bills, the House and Senate bills, both came out of the subject matter committees with amendments. The original bills focused on veterinary support for the export industry. We asked that it be amended to be for the entire aquaculture industry. They accepted that amendment. CTAR and Department of Ag asked for amendments stating that it would be more economical to have the lab then moved entirely to be under Department of Ag, to not have to deal with the 45% overhead of having the lab on campus. And also that the staff could then be permanent hires rather than year-to-year grant hires. So those requests have also been put into the bills. The Senate version, Senate Bill 648, went through the higher education committee yesterday and was approved, and it's now referred on to Ways and Means. The House version had already passed that point and gone on to finance. Now the challenge is to get these heard by the money committees. And they don't necessarily support agriculture and aquaculture. So this is where having lots of support early on in session by the committees that are more favorable to aquaculture helps push it forward. The bills have to be heard and by their final committee in the next week or so, if I understand this year's schedule correctly, in order to be kept alive. At that point, all the House bills are then transferred over to the Senate. All the Senate bills come over to the House, and the process starts again in the opposite chamber. And at each of these hearings, there needs to be testimony to keep it moving forward. After the crossover and after the second half of the session, where they go through the same general types of reviews in the opposing chambers committees, if there was a House and a Senate version that are still alive, and if the language has been changed and is in, not identical word for word, and the committees don't, or the committee chairs don't agree to accept the other side's version, then it goes to committee. And this is a closed door session of the legislature where selected members from the House and Senate side negotiate on the final bill. There have been years where the chairs of the House and Senate committees wouldn't speak to each other, and the committee meetings never happened, and all the bills died. Other times they're very collaborative with one another. It's a very simple process. Once they complete their version and give out a final legislative version, and it goes back to the floor of the legislature for final approval, it goes to the governor. The governor has a period of time to review and either veto or choose to let it go forward without signature or to approve it. At the point the governor signs it, or it goes forward without his signature due to a time limit, it becomes law. So that's the process. Let me finish running through our other priorities though. So both of the two bills for our number one priority, the disease lab, are both still active. Both have been referred to the respective money committees and are waiting to be scheduled for hearing, hopefully in the next few days or early next week. Our priority 2 bill was related to doing a 5-year strategic plan. And that effort was interpreted by the drafters that we had tasked Sea Grant with that project. I think wasn't the actual intent, but that's how it was interpreted, to have Sea Grant hire a third party to do the study. The way this bill has been amended, the reality of the process, by the time the governor would have approved this measure, if it made it through the legislature, there would have been only 4 months left to do a 5-year strategic plan and report it back to the legislature before the next session. This was insufficient time. So Sea Grant asked for an additional 12 months, which HAA supported, and that amendment was accepted. So now both of the House and Senate versions on this bill have been amended. They've also been amended that the strategic planning process involve the industry. So it's very specific in the legislation that the industry will be a part of this process. So these bills are still moving forward, and hopefully we get them to the money committees. There have been no oppositions to these bills to date. And our third priority was to have the Department of Ag look for a NELHA type site on Oahu. We only have a Senate version of that bill, but it is still alive. And it has been referred to Ways and Means. And so all of these bills are now waiting at their money committees to be heard. If they aren't heard, they're done for this session. It gets complicated, at least to me, but the Hawaii legislature runs on a 2-year cycle. So if these bills just aren't heard, they're still alive for next session. If they are opposed and voted down, then they're dead. So as long as these bills, even if don't complete the process this year, they can still be reactivated at the start of next session and continue forward. So we do get a second chance on ones that don't make it all the way on the first year. And this is often the case. So that for our first 3 priorities are all moving forward with 1 or 2 bills. Let's see. Priorities 4 and 5 did not get bills created. That was workforce development and a programmatic impact statement for fish ponds. Those did not get legislative support this first year, but we can certainly raise them up again next year. Let's see, priority 6 was to establish a aquaculture advisory council within the Department of Ag. That also made it forward. There was a Senate bill to that effect, and it is also waiting to be heard by Ways and Means. The bill came out asking for 5 members to be on the board from industry. We recommended that the industry is so diverse, 5 members wouldn't effectively represent the diversity that we have. So we asked that the number be expanded to 11 members, and the Senate agreed. So now the bill does specify 11 members with clerical support provided by the Department of Ag for note-taking and reporting. So that's still going forward. Priority 7 was the SBIR matching grant programs in DBED. We didn't have to put bills forward for this because this is routinely submitted by the High Tech Development Corporation of DBED. But since aquaculture has been one of the most active participants in this program, other than Department of Defense researchers, we actively support this program. And those bills have also gone forward, and just double checking. At least the House version has made it to finance. I'm not sure the latest status on the Senate version. But so that's still going forward, and the amount of funding available for the matching grants, the request was increased from $1.5 million to $2 million. If you take the time to look at bills, one of the things you will see as it goes through session is the effective date of the legislation. And if there, like I mentioned earlier, if there's any discrepancy between the House and Senate versions, then they have to go to conference. So both sides put really strange dates on their bills to force it to have to go to committee. So a number of our bills this session, the effective date is the year 3000. And I thought it was a typo at first time I saw this, but that's just part of the process. There were also a number of bills that the industry did not initiate, that we have to weigh in on. And it's a judgment call each year as to how to approach this. I typically, you can either offer comments or you can oppose. Sometimes there's good ideas in the bill, but there's also problems. And so typically we and other groups like Farm Bureau or even the state agencies will offer comments, or they will support the intent rather than strongly supporting a measure, and then ask for amendments. So, you know, there was a bill that proposed to transfer all aquaculture lands onshore and ocean to the Department of Agriculture for management. And we didn't feel that there was the knowledge base in the Department of Agriculture currently to understand all the implications of land management and ocean management. But we didn't want to oppose it per se. We just wanted to, you know, bring this to the attention of the legislature that perhaps at this time this wasn't an appropriate move. So we just offered comments. That bill has not moved forward since that time, and so it will probably die. Another bill that is moving forward because there's political pressure to do so is to transfer all aquaculture programs to the Agribusiness Development Corporation, including the veterinary lab, and to put all decision-making at the discretion of the executive director, and exempt the program from what appears to be environmental and food safety and health requirements. So but this bill was supported by a number of well-known senators. So we always have to balance how we respond, because we need the good graces on other bills. You know, that's the reality of politics. So we opted on this case to express comments with concerns and ask that this measure be deferred, meaning to not go forward, but it's short of opposing it. And we just didn't feel that, you know, the Agribusiness Development Corporation doesn't have the aquaculture expertise. It doesn't have lab space. Going back to the first bill where we talked about the diagnostic lab, what came out of that conversation between CTAR and Department of Ag is that aquaculture diagnostic needs by alone aren't of sufficient number on an annual basis to ever become cost effective. And so we would have to go back to the legislature to ask for supplemental funding every year. Whereas if livestock and aquaculture lab duties were housed in the same facility, it would be economical for both. And so that's what everybody agreed to, and that's how the measures went forward. This bill to transfer all of aquaculture to ADC would bypass that collaboration and that joining of forces between aquaculture and livestock, and it would make the veterinary program uneconomical to proceed. They also indicated in that bill that all service fees from the veterinary program would go to the operational funds of ADC, which we felt was taking away from the resources the aquaculture program and the veterinary services needed to operate. So we provided comments, and that bill is being heard today, actually, and so I don't have any update on where it stands. But it's being held at 1 o'clock today. There were a couple of other bills. There were 3 bills that came in support of Kohala Mountain Fish Company. They want to move forward on a project they're calling The Village, and they are asking for $100 million in state bonds, and another bill is asking for state matching funds on any money they raise. But the concept is an integrated program of aquaculture, agriculture, including ranching, food processing, worker housing, and so forth. So it's gotten a lot of good traction. A lot of people are supportive of it. But because it's a single farm, I felt the need to reach out to the broader, to the association to get feedback before I took a position with HAA. We did similarly with our aquaculture alerts, and I believe Gene did the same, requesting testimony from in the collaborative. So far this session, we've not received any individual farm testimonies on most of these measures. I think Kula Farms is the only one, Kula Haven is the only one that has responded this year to legislative testimony requests. It's very helpful when we have this happen. And sometimes it's simply the committees count the number of testimonies for and against and go with the higher count. And so we really need this backup support. There were 2 other bills. So these 3 bills, I think all 3 of them are being heard today or were heard yesterday to support Kohala Mountain. Again, HAA didn't submit testimony, but because I thought the concept was good, I submitted testimony personally in support of the measure as a concept. And then there are, let's see, there were a couple other bills to relating to land management and so forth. One of them was to have the Department of Ag acquire the management of the lands by all other agencies that could be used for aquaculture and purchase these lands from these departments, which seemed then there would be a much higher rent issue for the, once they did that. But this bill never got heard, so it died. We didn't have to weigh in on it one way or the other. And there was another bill to separate the duties of plant quarantine between plant quarantine and animal industries. That was also not heard. So beyond that, because we are working jointly with the Farm Bureau and Farmers Union and others, there are a number of bills that I didn't take the numbers down for this meeting, but that would benefit everybody, including potential tax deductions for up to $10,000 for materials and supplies used for producing food, and excise tax issues. I mean, deferments for purchasing supplies to grow food. So there are these types of things that come forward that benefit our industry, but the ones that are listed here are the ones that we weighed in on. To give you, and to wrap up on this part of it, to give you an idea of the magnitude of what happens in a few weeks down at the legislature, this session, 4,000 bills were introduced by the various legislators. As of Monday of this week, the Farm Bureau had submitted testimony on 130 bills related to agriculture. We had submitted testimony on 20 bills related to aquaculture. So it's just overwhelming in the first few weeks. The numbers will go down as the session moves on and bills don't continue to be approved. And once they switch over from the first chamber to the second chamber, from House to Senate or Senate to House, those are the bills that will usually be where we really have to weigh in on substantive issues that may still be in the bills that we like or dislike. That's where the amount of work gets less, but the importance of the work increases. And so that's where it would really be helpful if we could get more letters of testimony to push our priority bills over the finish line.
Thanks, Ron.
What's the next slide, Jean?
Yeah, well, maybe in interest of time, thank you so much for all your insights on the bill. And I feel like maybe a big takeaway is that more individuals and businesses need to submit testimony on each bill at each hearing in order for things to keep things alive. And I wanted to see if we had some questions from the audience right now, our participants, to see if you have questions for Ron.
The legislature has made the testimony submission process easier each year. And so we have, I think Jean has sent out, I know the Aquaculture Association has sent out the written directions to do so. And we have it spelled out on the balance of this presentation, but it's really straightforward. And the main thing is you just, at the beginning, you need to register your name, your company, which takes, a few minutes. And then from then on, all you have to do is enter a username and password and click submit testimony, and you go right to where you need to be.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. And
I can submit testimony in 2 to 3 minutes once it's written.
Great, thank you. And we'll send out these slides. We'll post these on our website so you have some access to how to submit testimony. But for discussion's sake, does anyone have questions for Ron about a particular bill or the importance of becoming involved? Nathan, you have a question?
Hi, Ron. In regards to SB 114, I'm a producer with existing permits, and I'm very concerned about, what creation of a new board is going to do for us with, an existing process that really works well for us and we're familiar with. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they're a native vine.
Ron, you're muted.
Yes, we are concerned about that as well. We either opposed it or submitted testimony with comments and concerns. I'm looking for the record right now, but that one, to my knowledge, did not continue forward. There was enough concerns expressed that it, to my knowledge, it is dead. It is always possible if there's some well-placed supporter at the ledge that they can bring together multiple committees in the last day or so and meet the requirement to have it heard by all the committees. But so far, I don't see any indication that that's going to happen. So I think we're okay for this year.
Okay, so I had submitted testimony on that bill and was both written and oral via Zoom, and they had passed it to move it forward when I was on the call. But you're saying something different. Is that correct?
Well, that was the first committee, I believe, the Agriculture Committee. It then has to be picked up by the next committee. And to my knowledge, that did not occur or has not yet occurred. And it's so late in the process for this first part of the cycle that it's going to be difficult to get it heard. If it is heard, I mean, if they do schedule it, we'll put out an alert, and we'll have to repeat the process of opposing it or expressing concerns. But the fact that you weighed in on it was very helpful. That's what they need to hear. They need to understand the impact to an individual farm or multiple farms.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nathan. Other questions for Ron or comments? Yeah, Ron, I also wanted to say that I think I may have seen some testimony from Ecoponics as well, and maybe a few individuals. So I know some of our businesses and individuals are submitting testimony, but what we're hearing from you is we need more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I must have missed yeah, it's a low number. The only one I saw that I recognized was Kula Haven. I apologize that I missed the one that was just brought to my attention. I do remember the opposition. I just forgot about it. One of the challenges of the passing years.
Well, mahalo for helping us understand why and how to engage with policymakers to promote aquaculture. I think our call to action is to have more testimonies submitted. And I think in one of our previous conversations, you mentioned you've been at this for a while now, and you hope that there are others who might be able to carry on this important work. So I think that's also a call to action for early and mid-career aquaculturists to connect with Ron and take advantage of his mentoring with this legislative process.
I think there's sorry to interrupt you. I think there's a question from Catherine.
Oh, great. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, thank you. My question is, I've been helping with some other bills unrelated to, aquaculture, agriculture, and for those ones, we were having like community people like sign, pre-written testimonies. My question is, I wasn't involved in the process to turn in those written testimonies. Is there a way to submit more than one at a time with different signatures, or does everyone have to have an account and log in to do that? Do you guys know the process or where we could send those to the appropriate person to get them turned in if we do some like advocating in our community or through our business?
You have to turn them in individually. And I'll tell you that the legislature gets turned off when they have a whole lot of testimonies that are boilerplate. And so when they read off who's submitted testimony for and against, they'll call out the individual farms or individuals. But if they get a bunch that are identical, and they'll say, and we have 240 testimonies on a boilerplate saying the same thing, and everybody sort of smirks. So it actually can backfire. they really want to hear the individual experience. But what you can do is have multiple people sign on to an individual testimony, so that you can say we have 40 people behind this testimony. It's just think in terms of the fact that the legislators have to review hundreds of bills each week. And if they're getting 200 or 300 testimonies of the same, it just slows down the process. And, the people, they get irritated.
Yeah. Fair.
It's the reality.
Thanks for the great question, Catherine. Any other questions before we sign off today? All right, hearing none. Well, thank you once again, Ron. And, I think we have such an important message today. We know this industry has a lot of passion and potential, and expressing that to our government partners is critical to the growth of the industry. So we hope to see more testimony, and we'll continue to look for your alerts, Ron, and we'll continue to send ones that come across our desk as well. But thank you all so much.
And I would just say one parting comment that in Hawaii, we have the advantage of the community is generally behind us, where in other states they are not. And so the legislature knows that. So we actually have an easier job than some other locations to promote our industry.
All right. Thanks so much, Ron. And thank you all for participating. And we'll be talking to you over email, and let us know what questions you have. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.